Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Welcome back, everyone. We are going through a case study here today on the Cabral Concept. If you want to actually download this lab, you are welcome to. It will be at stephencabral.com/2260, and you can follow along if you would like. This is a redacted lab from a private wellness client inside of the Equilife-based practice. And I told the team that I would go through this one for them, and happy to share all of the findings with you as well. I love being able to do this probably like once or twice a month. I go through a case study and I share this in the podcast. This is from someone suffering from low energy, poor sleep, and weak digestion, meaning they have bloating, they've got some gas, they've got some cramping, and basically irritable bowels. So low energy, lower mood, poor sleep, and very poor digestion. Let's see what we find. So this is our Candida metabolic and vitamins test. It's not ours. Let me just throw that out there. We don't have any labs. We are not a lab company. We run these labs for people, meaning like they can run them right at home. This is a simple urine-based lab called the Candida metabolic and vitamins test. Again, if you want to look at what the lab looks like, you can run this lab with your local naturopathic doctor or integrative health practitioner level 2, or with our team. It's, of course, totally up to you. But today, I just want to share with you what it actually looks like and how we can figure out why someone's suffering from the poor energy, low mood, poor digestion, poor sleep. So this is, again, called the Candida metabolic and vitamins test. And let's get started. So this first page, this is 72 biomarkers. So it's a very, very impressive test. Again, simple urine sample you take first thing in the morning. What we're looking at on this first 9 markers is there the presence of potentially yeast and fungus inside of the waste of the urine? So basically we have stool. We think of that as the waste from maybe food byproduct, but it's not just food. It's actually all the toxins that our liver detoxifies, and it basically mixes with the bile, and the bile comes into the stool as well. But the urine also removes waste from the body as well. So what we're looking at is waste markers on this lab. And what we see here is this, again, we're looking at the client's number. The client's number is represented inside of this little white diamond. If you're not following on a video, no problem at all. I will explain all of this as we go along. And ideally, you want to fall somewhere within this normal range bar. I'm not going to go too in depth here today. But I want to share with you that you can see that this client has 1, 2, 3 markers that are high out of the 9. And it's, of course, represented by the H. And then we've got maybe 1, 2 that are getting closer to being out of range. So if we look at it, maybe 5 markers that are on the higher end, 3 that are definitely quite elevated. And so what does that mean? Well, it means that this client certainly has at least some of the waste markers of yeast and fungal-based overgrowth, and they may even had some mold exposure as well, certainly indicated by this tartaric acid, number 6 and aspergillus-based mold. So certainly means that they could be exposed to some mold, but there looks like, again, we're not diagnosing anyone with any medical-based diagnosis, that there may be some yeast overgrowth inside of this client. And so when they eat certain foods, such as certain carbohydrates, fructo, oligo, di, mono, and polysaccharides, and you don't need to know what those mean right now, they would cause bloating and gas as well. So just keeping that in mind, we see some of the beneficial bacteria, but we see this bacteria slightly elevated as well. So we've got a little elevation of bacteria there. Normal beneficial bacteria, so that's good, but we definitely see the yeast overgrowth here. The Clostridium bacteria, which we never want to see elevated, that looks good. So that's a positive in their corner. We love to see that. So from the gut testing right now, we're looking at basically yeast overgrowth. That could be from antibiotic use and many, many other factors as well. Okay, now we're looking at their oxalates, and they've got certainly a fair amount of oxalates. They've got a 107 when the range goes up to 67, and a 129 when it goes up to 81. If it's just oxalic acid that's elevated, oftentimes if it was a 107, I'd say, sure, it's there, but this person could have massive deficiencies in terms of magnesium, B6, and others. But right now, we certainly do see that oxalates are a bit elevated, so we'll be giving them a slightly lowered total oxalate load for the day. Whenever we see lactic acid elevated and pyruvic acid lowered, it can mean there's an ATP, there's a mitochondrial issue. Maybe we just asked them, maybe the person worked out at night, the night before. So we can ask them a bunch of issues, but certainly this is not a very good energy turnover. If we have high lactic acid and we have lower pyruvic acid, we might have a mitochondrial-based issue. And so then we look below, is there a mitochondrial issue? And lo and behold, there does seem to be, right? So when we're looking at this, these are our mitochondrial markers. Again, you don't need to know what the Krebs cycle is. You probably learned it maybe in high school or college, and that's long behind most of us, right? But if we look at this, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 6 elevated. So what does this show? This shows very high levels of stress on the mitochondria, very, very high. So, it's no wonder that this client is lower mood, they're aggravated, they have poor sleep, poor energy, because their mitochondria, their nervous system, their body is very, very stressed. And even, again, poor mitochondrial turnover as well. So I'm looking at these mitochondrial markers. A lot of them can be having to do with methylation, or at least massive deficiencies in things like vitamin C, B vitamins, etc. But we're looking at what I'll give that 1.5 elevated out of the 3. So a lot of issues when we're looking at the end metabolites of dopamine or norepinephrine. The stress markers quite high in the dopamine. This person is just, it looks like if they're not a type A individual, then they're overall just very, very stressed, without a doubt. And even though their serotonin marker is good, it just doesn't balance. So serotonin's the calming neurotransmitter, that and GABA, more of happy, calming. Dopamine and norepinephrine are more of the excitatory. And even though serotonin's well within range, that's why this is an art of looking at a lab test, not just a go by the numbers. These are not within ratio. They're just not. If dopamine's going to be this high, then we need serotonin closer to this level as well. So this person isn't able to get his sleep as well because their excitatory neurotransmitters, their stress hormones are going to be higher. And this is a stress neurotransmitter, which actually looks pretty good, are higher, and their calming ones are not where they need to be in order to produce more melatonin and get to sleep at night. Okay, we see uracil, which we use as a folate-based marker. Again, this person has just a greater need for methyl donors. There's just no doubt about it. Maybe there's an MTHFR gene mutation, on those singular nucleotide polymorphisms. But either way, it doesn't necessarily matter if we know that or not, because we know that their need for B vitamins is high, and I'll show you that again in just a moment. So I'm looking at their ketone and fatty acid oxidation. We've got a little bit of hydroxybutyric acid. This is some of that fermentation going on in the gut. Or either they're dropping into hypoglycemia, they're on a low-carb diet, or again, they're just in super fight-or-flight-based mode. So this client in particular needs a lot of calming protocols. And that's not just through supplementation. Yes, we'll use things like Adrenal Soothe. We'll use full spectrum magnesium. We'll use the Ultimate Sleep Help protocol. There's no doubt about that. In addition to the daily nutritional support and the omega-3s, we're definitely using that. But they need things like binaural beats. They need to start to integrate things like meditation. If they're over-exercising right now, we need to calm that down for a period of time, because this person has way too much stress on that sympathetic nervous system. I mean, it's just very, very elevated. And this is, of course, a great case study to show you, because it doesn't always look this high. There's obviously variations of this. We look at this methylmalonic acid. That's a marker for B12. You might say, well, that's elevated. Okay, yeah, maybe it's elevated. Maybe they are using a lot of B12 in their diet or their supplementation. So we'll ask. But most likely, this is an increased need for B12. There's just such a large usage of this, because methylmalonic is actually the used B12. It's very different than looking at it in the blood when you just measure B12. B12 in the blood, you could be taking cyanocobalamin, and it could be very high because it can't be used because it's the non-methylated version of B12. So most likely this person has a very high need for B12 because of all the stress they're under. They're massively low in B6, which is probably why their serotonin is underperforming, as well as their other calming neurotransmitters, maybe even why they have high oxalates as well. Because remember, you have to peel back this onion and there's layers to this. B5 looks okay. B2 on the higher end. Again, we use B2 quite a bit for the adrenals. Maybe there's an increased need or maybe there's supplementation. A little low in vitamin C, not too bad, but they're a little out of range, so we'll add a little bit more vitamin C to their daily regimen. Their CoQ10 looks remarkably strong for someone under this amount of stress, so that's great to see. Again, maybe they're supplementing with something like advanced CoQ10, or maybe they're just, again, they do really well with CoQ10, and some people do. NAC is a little low, but obviously it's not the end-all be-all. We look at their overall detox markers and how they're doing there, and their biotin looks fairly strong as well. So good to see. Now, again, we say, okay, does this NAC matter because it's at a 0? Well, yes, it does matter because look at their detox. I haven't even seen this, so I was doing this as a case study, and I love, that I love lab testing, but I really loved lab testing because when I see this, this is not good, right? This is not good. We do not want to see someone whose glutathione is this high, methylation this high, ammonia this high, GI bacteria, aspartame, salicylates. There is something going on with this person's liver detoxification, meaning like it is underperforming. All right, so what are we going to do? Well, we need to support methylation. We need to support their liver. So no doubt in my mind, there's no medical treatment plans being given. There is no medical diagnosis. There's no medical cures. What we do is we help people with their underlying root cause imbalances. And you can see them right now. That's why we run these labs. So we're going to support their deficiencies. We're going to replace those deficiencies, right? And we're going to remove a lot of these toxicities. So our job and our health coaching team's job is to go in and give them all the precursors they need. So this person's going to be eating more cruciferous vegetables. They're going to be doing a 21-day functional medicine detox. They are going to be certainly using those methylated B vitamins. Most likely, they're going to be using the daily nutritional support plus the activated B complex. To accomplish that, we're going to be improving their gut function, making sure that we get this ammonia down for sure. They're going to feel terrible with that level of ammonia. Absolutely terrible. There could be anything from like unusual body odor to halitosis to poor protein digestion to elevated levels of bacteria. And just exhaustion, just complete exhaustion, like brain fog when you have ammonia levels this high. So for sure, we're going to be helping this client out to just a massive degree by doing what I just recommended, plus the CBO protocol to help rebalance the gut. And then these are how well they're breaking down individual proteins, which are called amino acids, and they're doing a great job. All of these should be low. Ideally, you want them all in the bar or ideally even lower. And this person's actually doing quite a good job. So that's good. Again, it's not all bad, right? We remark on things that are good, and then we only work on things that are not great. And this phosphoric acid level being that low too. We haven't run it, but most likely their calcium, magnesium, their vitamin D is going to be quite low. So we've got a lot to work on with this individual just from this one lab. Luckily, this client ran the whole Big Five, so that gives us a lot more indicators of what we can work on, because I want to know, is the client's vitamin D3 that low, or is this a CalMag issue? Is this low protein? What exactly is going on? So just to recap, when we look at a lab like this, it just gives us so much information. We know that there's some yeast overgrowth. Again, no diagnosis, but there could be some yeast and fungal overgrowth because we see all the yeast metabolites, right? And fungal metabolites. So we're going to be doing the CBO protocol to help rebalance that gut, to help with the bloating and the digestive issues. No doubt about that. And then we look at all of these different mitochondrial issues, right? All these energy issues. This easily explains why the client is having low energy, high levels of stress, poor sleep, low mood. This person's mitochondria are on overdrive, large amounts of stress that we want to tackle with, again, not just supplementation. That's going to be part of it, yes, because we need to give this person's body a heroic push back into balance. But really, we need to balance blood sugar, right? That's a big part of it. We need to make sure that they're not over fasting, they're not over exercising. They're definitely, maybe they're getting enough calories, but they're undernourished in terms terms of micronutrients, in terms of all of their B vitamins and vitamin C. So we'll be helping with that. We're helping with their detox factors and liver detox because this person's liver is under stress. Now, maybe it's from leaky gut, maybe it's from intestinal permeability, maybe it's from heavy metals. We'll have to look at other labs for that, but certainly they need a good amount of liver detox, and we're going to help tremendously with that. And then we'll look at that calcium, magnesium, and we'll look at their protein levels and vitamin D as well. So that is that. I mean, this is just one lab, but it's an amazing lab, the Candida Metabolic and Vitamins Test. This is how we help people, right? We figure out what are the underlying root causes, like yeast overgrowth. Maybe there's some leaky gut. And then we figure out what else they're short on and what needs to be worked on, like the mitochondria and the methyl donors for sure. Excuse me. And excuse me. And then this poor liver detox. So much to work on. But the nice thing is that someone like this, and even though there is so much that this is a lab that needs a lot of work, is that this person is going to be feeling tremendous within just about 4 to 6 weeks. The whole protocol is going to last about 12 to 16 weeks, but they'll be feeling remarkably better after that 21-day Equilife functional medicine detox and then going into the CBO protocol. I mean, they're just going to feel so much better after having removed a lot of those toxicities and then begin to replace those deficiencies. So again, you can run this lab. It's called the Candida Metabolic and Vitamins Test if you choose to with your local naturopathic doctor or integrative health practitioner level 2 or with our team over at Equilife. You can find this lab over at stevencabral.com/labs if you just want to get familiar with it. And if there's any additional questions, I would be happy to help. But this is the power of functional medicine. It really is. It's what saved my life, that's for sure. It's what turned my life around. And I'm just happy that I get to pay it forward for everyone here in the Cabral Concept community. Thank you so much. Have an amazing day. Let me know what questions you do have. Write in the comments on YouTube or Instagram. Take care, everyone. I want to sincerely thank you for your support of this podcast. I couldn't do it without you, and I mean that. I truly do. I also want to make sure you knew that we now have multiple ways for you to find your answers to the most difficult health, wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging questions. You can find podcast-specific topics like thyroid, adrenal, hormones, sleep, digestion, Ayurveda, and many more at stevencabral.com/podcasts that will then link you to your favorite Apple, Spotify, and other podcast players. Plus, all new podcasts and weekly exclusive video content is being added to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Stephen Cabral. And that's Stephen with a PH. Head on over and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the exclusive content. Lastly, if you've ever found any of my podcasts or books to be helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes or your favorite media player for the podcast. Rating and subscribing to the YouTube and podcast allow me to reach more and more people and help spread my mission of healing throughout the world. Thank you again for being a part of this movement.